Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Jeremy Scott Finch Podcast Radio Show, coming to you on this Friday, September the 25th, 2020. Hopefully it finds you staying safe and staying sweaty all at the same time. Today's episode, we are going to do a deep dive into the world of intermittent fasting, answering your questions, kind of rehashing some of the things we've talked about in the past. I know we have an episode called, I think it's Intermittent Fasting 101, and then the 3 biggest mistakes I see people make when they are fasting. I'm going to kind of brush over those things and then go a little bit deeper here, answering the questions that you have asked via Instagram, and then all the ones I've got on our new program, which obviously the timing is working out perfect, as our 28-day intermittent fasting for fat loss challenge is kicking off here in about 8 days. So it starts on October the 5th, but we close on the registration early so we can get everybody in the group and make sure everybody has the proper emails and all the documents that they need to start kicking ass. And so if you've wanted to learn about intermittent fasting, I'll share exactly what I do in the group currently. I'll share what I've done in the past. We're going to walk you through a handful of different protocols so you can try. So there's something hopefully that almost fits everybody, and then we'll do our best to find something that fits your lifestyle to see if intermittent fasting is for you. And the only way, obviously, we know if things work is if we try them for typically an extended period of time. And then if they don't work, we pivot and we change gears, or we find something that works for us and then we let it morph as we kind of move through our life cycle. The way that I fast now is not the way that I fasted. I think it'll be coming on 11 years that I've done this, which we'll touch on as we go. But again, you got 8 days left to register if you guys are interested. And again, it's, the workouts, we include them in there. I'll share a bunch of extra stuff as well, but everything will come to you via email daily. I'll post it in the private Facebook group. But if you're somebody who's tired of just being obviously overweight and not feeling, sexy or confident in your own skin, if you're struggling to eat healthy on the weekends and falling into patterns of eating and drinking shit with your friends, and if you're just not seeing the results you want from your training sessions, the odds are it's probably the food intake, and the fasting protocol might be for you. I think it's the easiest way to go about it. It simplifies your life, and if you guys know me, I am all about simplifying the complex things so I can be as productive and healthy and happy as possible. So if you're interested, the link's in my Instagram bio right now. I believe the site itself is jeremyscottfitness.com/intermittent-fasting. And I'm happy to give you guys a small podcast discount code if that can make things easier for you and your life. So if you're interested, hit me up and we'll get that moving here as soon as possible. Also, if you guys are watching on YouTube, welcome everybody. Thank you guys. You'll notice the setup here looks a little bit different as we're kind of doing some updates here to my office or the podcast studio as guests know it. And we'll be changing the podcast setup here probably tomorrow. We're leveling up here in a handful of ways. So you guys will probably hear that and also see that as we go. So I'm pretty jacked for that. But let's just get into it today. So if we're talking intermittent fasting, I'm going to walk through the basic stuff and then we'll get as complex as need be. Now we can go super deep down the rabbit hole here with studies and documentation, whether that be on humans or animals. But I want to give you guys the information that's going to be helpful and then hopefully answer the questions that you have asked. And I'm going to be taking some stuff from Healthline. Chris Gunner's put together a couple of nice pieces over there. And then harvard.edu or health.harvard.edu. Monica Tello, who is a doctor, she put together some interesting snippets and kind of clips too that I'm going to share with you guys. And then I'm going to walk through the things that I've done well and then poorly and what I did to change it and shift it and how my stuff has evolved to get where it is today. And then taking each individual question that I can find. Right now I snapshotted like 10 of them. Sorry, I can't get everybody's question. It's just impossible because you guys ask a lot, but I'll do the best I can. So with that said, for you guys listening who was like, what the hell is intermittent fasting, Jeremy? Well, it's popular in the health and fitness circles. It was probably 10, 11, I think I first heard of it 12 years ago. And then I started sometime shortly after. I think Lean Gains is how I came about it. Martin Beckman, I believe, is who I first heard about doing it. And I initially started because I just got tired of eating every couple hours. I was the normal dude out there who's listening, every guy who's young wants to be bigger and more shredded. That's like saying you want to be richer but work way less. Maybe you guys can do that, but I couldn't do it with my physical body, and I sure shit couldn't do it with my business. If I work more, I produce more. If I, eat more, I don't get more shredded. I get fluffier. Now, over time, yeah, the progression can happen, but you're not going to be 25 years old and be 215 pounds and ripped unless you're the 1% of the 1%. That's just really tough to do. So a lot of people will come in and they'll say, hey, I want to be 10 pounds bigger, but better condition. I'm like, you can't do, it's like going forwards and going backwards. You just got to pick a direction. And for me personally, I was the young guy who, I've told the story a bunch of times where I would just step on the scale and it'd be like 180 and then 182 and 184 and 186. But I'd be eating so much, I'd be eating 6-7 times a day till you basically want to shit puke on yourself. And there's so much digestive stress there, and it's so much management. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of trips to the bathroom. So it's like, A, who likes to wipe their butt that much? But 2, we don't know the long-term effects of that. Like, we have not been eating this 6-7 meals a day shit. I don't think, like, the 90s is probably when we started that. So we don't know what kind of issues that causes down the line 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And what I mean is, like, at the end of your life cycle, when you're 60 and 70, but you've been eating these 6-7 meals every single day. Now, some people, they feel great with it. I didn't. I felt like I didn't have enough time to digest my food. You have heartburn, indigestion. It's just not, it wasn't for me. And it really was causing me a lot of problems, and it was doing way more harm to my body than good. And so I came across intermittent fasting as the idea. And disclaimer, I did gain weight doing it when I first started doing it. Now it's the easiest thing for me to maintain my weight. And if I want to drop body fat or a couple pounds, it's ridiculously easy for me to do. So again, all this takes practice mentally and obviously physically. You train your body to get used to something, and over time it will do it. And again, we're all different. We all have, genetically our predispositions to certain eating styles or training styles, or what we're good at or what we're bad at. But fasting helps people obviously lose weight, improve their health, and it does help people really simplify their lifestyles. And there is studies out there that shows it can be powerful with the effects it has on your body and your brain. And some of them say it may even help you live longer. I don't know. I'm just going off of what I'm reading here. I can send you guys all the sites and sources too. We can put them in the show notes if need be. But intermittent fasting is basically just eating in a pattern of cycles between your fasting and your eating. It doesn't specify like what foods you should eat, but rather when you should eat them. So people were asking me about our program, our 28-day fasting for fat loss. Like, well, Jeremy, I'm vegan. Can I do it? I'm like, yeah. We provide a bunch of recipes for you to try. We give like a sample outline of what days would look like and what meals you could plug in. But it doesn't matter if you're vegan or paleo or carnivore, it all can work. And so it doesn't matter if you do or don't eat certain things. It's not about the foods you're eating. Now, obviously I'm a real food fan and I'm a fan of balance across the board, but it's just about the timing of when you're eating and not eating. And so it's not a diet, in the conventional sense, but more accurately you would describe it as an eating pattern. And there's a bunch of protocols you can follow. I've done multiple over the years. Like the common intermittent fasting methods involve like a 16-hour fast or a 24-hour fast a couple of times per week. Now, obviously fasting has been in practice through human evolution since, I would imagine, the beginning of time. Like the ancient, hunter-gatherers didn't have supermarkets. They didn't have drive-thrus. They didn't have Uber Eats and Postmates and shit, right? They didn't have refrigerators. And they didn't have the same food available all year round. So like if it wasn't apple season, they didn't have apples. Or if they didn't live in a certain region where you could get oranges, they didn't have oranges. And so sometimes they couldn't find what they wanted to eat, or in a lot of cases, they wouldn't find anything they could eat whatsoever. So as a result, humans evolved, to be able to function without food for these extended periods of time. You are an example of that. Now, I think we're probably reversing that in a lot of ways by what our human behavior is and what we're doing. And again, that's a whole different podcast altogether. I should do one. I need to get somebody in here who's way smarter than me, and we can talk about that, like the evolution of us and like how we've, for lack of a better term, fucked ourselves up by how we've forced ourselves to sit in seats all day and stare at these, ridiculous demonic boxes all day and just eat all the time and have 5,000 calories readily available all the time for $5. And that's just, it's not healthy. You can clearly see by how they look, how they move, they walk around. Like, I'm not judging anybody, but like, go to any grocery store or restaurant, look around. There's not an overwhelming number of fit people in there. And that's a result of like us evolving into the version we are today. And that's why I do think fasting is a great thing to throw into your life. And when I say that, you imagine how crazy it is today. Like if you were, and we're soft, obviously, as humans in general, because we don't have, we have different struggles, right? Like, and your problems are real to you because they're real in the moment, but you're not out in the wilderness hunting for food all fucking day. So you're not as fit, but then we make these small problems in life seem really big. When like, I always bring up Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, because every time I watch it, I'm like, I literally can't, I say it to myself 1,000 times in my head, and then I probably say it to Heather 10 more times. I'm like, Heather, this is this dude's life. This was this dude's life. Like, he was out in the woods by himself, like hunting for food, like trying not to just freeze to death and starve to death. And then like, oh, by the way, like fighting off people trying to kill him on a horse with bow and arrows and shit, and other people trying to like shoot him with a musket. Like, it's insanity. The point I'm driving at is he couldn't walk to the grocery store and pick between 7 different kinds of apples. Like, we literally have everything at our fingertips, and it's amazing, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's a gift and a curse. And that's the way that I look at it. Either where you can eat any kind of food and buy any kind of food you want, depending where you live, almost all the time. I'm in Scottsdale. I drive here past probably 400 restaurants, and some of the nicest places you'll ever eat. Like, there's so many amazing places here, I almost forget about them. Like, we met our friends at this restaurant last weekend. It's called Chelsea's Kitchen. If you're ever in Scottsdale, Phoenix, like Arcadia area, go to it. It's amazing. And I'm like, I haven't been here in about 3 years, and the food is so good. But because we have so many places to go, it's like, it's hard to make the rounds. And I always hear like, oh, did you try this place or this place or this place? And by the time you try one and you love it, you circle back to it. It's like 2 years later. That's what I'm talking about. Like, we have so much access to everything instantly, and it takes zero work to get to it. Like, you don't have to go hunt, your buffalo. You don't have to go hunt your elk. You just went and bought it at Whole Foods, or they actually dropped it off at your front door now, which is insane. So, side rant over, but the fact we've evolved as humans to be able to not eat for extended periods of time, even though people probably told you have to eat every couple hours, and it's just not true. For some people it works, for some people it doesn't work. It's not required. You're not going to wither away to nothing. All your gains won't be lost. You'll be totally fine if you go multiple hours without eating food. And so fasting from time to time is more than natural than I think eating 3, 4, 5, or 6 or 7 meals per day is. I'll repeat that sentence. I think fasting from time to time is way more natural than you eating every 2 hours. Now, obviously, fasting is done for a lot of you guys for religious and spiritual reasons, whether it's Islam, Christianity even, Judaism, Buddhism, you name it. It's done. I think there's actually a Jewish holiday coming up. Is it Monday maybe? Is it Yom Kippur? Is that right? I think I know. Is it on my calendar over here? We have a bunch of Jewish folks up in here, and they're trying to educate me on it a little bit. And I think the fast is this all the way to the end of the day, and then only can you not? I don't think she. I think they said she wasn't even gonna drink water. My girl Stacy was telling me I don't think she should drink coffee or water at all. So they fast completely everything. I said that's tough to do. Without the coffee and the water, man, I would be on the struggle bus for sure. But the point is that it's been around for a long time, and we still carry it on in religious traditions to this day. And there's a lot of people like me out there who live in the fasting world 24/7, 365. So, with that said, there's several different ways people to do intermittent fasting, all of which involve splitting the day or the week into eating and kind of fasting periods. Now, obviously during the fasting periods, you eat nothing, in my opinion, or some people will do like the eat very little thing. And again, we're all going to differ on that of what counts and what doesn't count. But essentially, you all intermittent fast already. So everybody listen to me, you already do it in some form or fashion, unless you set an alarm clock to wake up and eat in the middle of the night. And if you do, you're probably a professional bodybuilder, I guess, like trying to just become enormous. So think of it this way. If you eat your last meal at 8 o'clock at night and you don't eat until the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, you essentially fasted for 12 hours, if I'm doing the math right. So that's 12 hours that your body did not consume any food, no calories whatsoever. You were just sleeping, and then you woke up and then you ate. So if you ate the second you fell asleep and then you ate the second you woke up, that would be your fasting window, if everybody's following me here. Now, the popular methods, and the way that I started off, was the 16-8 method and that is where I got it from initially, and that's where like lean gains, like that was the protocol like in the book. Was it a book or like a PDF? I forget. I'm getting old, so my memory's starting to go to crap. But I read that when I was probably 25 years old, I believe. And typically with the 16-8, for most people, it involves skipping breakfast and restricting the daily eating protocols to 8 hours, such as, let's say, 1 o'clock till 9 p.m. is when you eat, and then you fast for 16 hours in between. When I started, I would fast the very first one I ever did, I would eat between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. because I would wake up so early, usually about the same times I do now, before 4 in the morning, and then I would be so hungry, I would obviously be starving by 10 o'clock because I wasn't used to it, because I was eating like, every 2-3 hours prior to that. Then I shifted the window from 11 to 7, and then I shifted it from like 12 to 8, and then I shrunk it from like 1 to 8, and now I don't have hard fast rules, but I don't really ever eat anything probably before 1 o'clock. Maybe on a rarer day it might be 12 or something if my schedule was funky, but most of the time now I'm eating between 3 o'clock and probably 8 o'clock, or like I said, the biggest window I'd have would be like 12 or 1 to 8 o'clock at night, and sometimes I end it even sooner depending if I'm just smoked from the day. That works for me. I personally, inside that window, eat 1 or 2 meals per day. Again, I'm not telling you guys to do what I do. That's what works for me. I'm not trying to get bigger. I'm not trying to get smaller. I'm just trying to be healthy and feel good and have energy to do my workouts and be able to think and function and speak properly. And that works. I'd rather eat 1 like gigantic meal or 2 huge meals. I feel better that way. I'm more satisfied, and when you look at like satiation and satiety, like how your brain and your gut communicate, that's what it is. And that's why, like on Thanksgiving, when you eat this giant meal, you're typically not hungry for probably the whole next day, or probably not hungry for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, even though you'll stuff your face with like pumpkin pie because you're a gluttonous American. That's just what we do. But I feel better that way. If I eat a smaller meal, I feel like it almost pisses me off and I'm even more hungry an hour later, and just perpetuates the problem. I actually eat more calories that way. So that would be like the 16-8 method. Right now I'm probably on a 20-hour fasting for the most part, and then a 4-hour eating window, and then usually 1 day a week or 2, it just depends. 1 or 2 days a week, I'll kind of fast for a full 24 hours. And I know that sounds ridiculous. And so like, Jeremy, you don't eat for a whole day? Yes and no. What I mean by that is like, let's say today is Friday, which it is. And usually for me, I enjoy my treats or my higher calorie meals like on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what my schedule is. Sometimes it's 1 meal a week, sometimes it's 2. So if tonight my last meal is at 6, I'll come in here tomorrow, I work all day, I'll work out. By the time I get home and do all my stuff, it's probably already close to 6 o'clock, and then we'll eat at home tomorrow, but if we made dinner reservations, it'd be like at like 6. And so that means I didn't eat from Friday at 6 p.m. I didn't eat my next meal until Saturday at 6 p.m. So that's a full 24 hours. Even though I'm eating technically every single day of the week, I'm not eating for a full 24-hour period. And then on Sunday, it just naturally happens because I'm a pig, I'm a giant fat kid at heart. I ate so much food Saturday, and I came in here, I worked out, I'm not even hungry Sunday until about the same time. So that's an extended fast as well. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm back to my normal kind of, 2 meals in that eating window. Again, that works for me. I'm not telling you guys to do that. So that's my hybrid version of like a 16-8. That works for me. And again, for reference, I'm 6'2". I think I weighed 212 pounds on the scale today. Just like came on just so I could tell you guys. Otherwise, I don't typically look at the scale. I'm usually between 210 and 200 and maybe 20 pounds if it's like Christmas time. But admittedly, I've been living very lean the last probably year and a half or 2 years. As you guys watch me on Instagram, I stay pretty lean just because we film so much shirtless bullshit, and that's the world I live in right now. And I honestly just feel better, leaner. I can carry more weight for sure, but I just feel better this way. I feel like I'm more athletic, not as many injuries. I'm more pliable, and I can still dunk a basketball easily. Like, it's just things that I still want to be able to do until I'm super old and say fuck it. And over 200 pounds is plenty big. It just really is. The older I get, the more I realize that, even if I was 195 pounds, I would look just completely shredded, and that would be fine. So I don't get hung up on the weight, but just for reference, I can maintain this weight eating the way that I do. But again, I'm a pig, so I eat like there's no food ever coming back to me when I do feed. The other protocol you could follow is kind of like the eat, stop, eat method, which I mentioned before. So I do a mix of the 16-8 and the eat, stop, eat, and that just involves eating, basically fasting for 24 hours, once or twice a week. And again, the example is not eating from dinner one day until dinner the next day. I find that to be the easiest. I love breakfast food. I don't love eating breakfast. I wake up too early. My body isn't used to it. I don't process it right. The only time I eat quote unquote breakfast would be if Heather and I are traveling internationally. And I'm trying to think of the last time we did it. Man, it's just so sad we can't travel and go to all these cool places. We were in Mykonos or Santorini, one of them. We stayed at this place in Santorini. Both places are beautiful. But in Santorini, the Mykonos place was dope too. In Santorini, we've stayed at this place. I think it's a Marriott, a luxury collection. I can't remember the name. Anyways, you're on the side of this cliff, and the sea is everything is right there. It's beautiful. And I would eat probably around 11 in the morning. That would be the earliest I'd eat, and that's on international trips. And then we would do an earlier dinner. So I'm still fasting a pretty good period of time. And on those trips, I'll eat just the 2 meals. I'll eat a big breakfast and I'll eat a dinner, and that's it. So I'm still on the fasting schedule. But that's the only time in my life I ever eat earlier than even 12 o'clock. And even that we push off to as late as possible. We try to get up, we go walking around the cities, get a workout in, and then we gorge ourselves in this beautiful, I love the European breakfast stuff we do. I do miss that for sure. But otherwise, I love breakfast food. I don't eat breakfast. I wake up here at 3:50 in the morning. I wake up before 4 o'clock in the morning, get my dog some treats, pet her, get my shit ready for the day, and I come here. I'm in no position to make food or eat it. I gotta have coffee, water, let my body just run right, and that's it. So those are 2 popular ones. Another one is the 5-2 diet, which I'm not a huge fan of that. That's where people consume only, a small amount of calories on 2 non-consecutive days. Monday you'd eat a small amount of calories, maybe 600 or something, and then the other days you kind of eat normally. That's what they kind of consider. I'm not a fan of that. I would rather have you guys do a couple of days of the 16-8, then have a normal regular day of eating and rotate that way, or do the eat, stop, eat stuff. I think that works best. Or if you can't, do the 16-8, maybe you do a 15 and a 9, or you do a 14 and a 10, something like that if you had to. But I do find most people do well with the 16-8 because that tends to be the simplest and the most sustainable and the kind of the easiest fasting protocol to stick to. And as life goes on and time goes on, you can shift and change it. And you don't have to do it every single day. I personally do because it works for me, but I'm just very type A and very regimented. So I get up at the same time every single day. I have the same, kind of routine. Heather is similar to me. She does not fast like I do or every day. but she's also not as regimented as I am. Like, I am like a fucking robot. It just works for me. It gives me, and people say, well, isn't it hard to do to stick to this, super strict schedule? It's actually very freeing when you do that. And I believe that about routine in general. Like, when you're doing routine in your life, it's the heart and soul of what you do. It allows you to be free. It allows you to do certain things. And so what I mean is, if I'm always eating in these windows, people go, isn't it tough to fast that long? I'm like, well, you don't do anything. You just drink water and coffee and tea, or I'll do, like, if you're watching on YouTube, like a Powerade Zero that has literally no calories in it. Like, I don't have to make any decisions. To me, when you're fasting in a smaller window like that and you're eating less meals, it's less chances to mess up. It's, if you're gonna eat 6 times a day, that's 6 meals you gotta get right. If you're eating 2 or 3 times a day, that's only 2 or 3 meals you have to get right. So by that, I have less chances to screw up throughout the day. Does that make sense? Like, what I'm saying, it's simplified. So if you only eat from 12 to 8, you don't have to do anything outside those windows, but just exist and live your life and do what you have to do. And I do find it's easier if you stay busy on the days you're fasting longer, as opposed to having nothing to do. Like, if I just had to sit home and watch Netflix all day from 5 in the morning till 8 at night, and I was supposed to fast that whole time, it would be tough to do, because your brain's gonna start to wander, you're gonna get bored, you're gonna be maybe confused, being thirsty with being hungry, which is a common mistake a lot of people make. So I find the busier you are, the easier it is to fast, for longer periods of time on those days. I also say, when you travel, I find it easier because you don't have to do anything other than drink water and coffee. When you're at the airport, when you're on a plane. And again, I know it's tempting. You're at the airport, you're bored as shit. You see the guy next to you eating a pizza and having a beer. Looks amazing. But if you can, try to see it through so you can make a better choice when you go. Or, a buddy of mine used to always do a huge breakfast. So if he did like a full day of travel, he would wake up and eat this enormous breakfast at like 7 a.m. and then travel all day, get to his location, work out, and then wouldn't eat again until like 7 at night. That is an option too. I, again, am not great with eating breakfast, so I tend to not do that. I'm just sharing with you guys what I've seen work for me and work for friends of mine and other clients here that have been successful. So if we're talking fasting, how does it affect your body besides you're eating less meals, you're eating in a smaller window, so overall you would probably eat less calories, i.e. you lose weight and lose body fat. Now, is it possible to gain weight fasting? Yes, 100% it is. I did it before. If you're not mindful, obviously, of the macros, the proteins, carbs, and fats you're taking in, and you're just going crazy, yes, you can still gain weight eating in a smaller window. Also, a problem that a lot of people have is they'll get so hangry and so pissed because they went past the point of no return. And what I mean is that they were starving 14 hours in, and they just wanted to extend it those 2 hours, and that was their breaking point. And the problem is, once you get past that, what I like to call fuck it point, everything looks good. Everything looks amazing. You'll grab your kids' Teddy Grahams, you'll put Cheetos in your mouth, you'll eat rolled up deli meat, you'll grab a handful of M&Ms, whatever is around you, you will shove it in your face, even if it's not what you want to do, and you'll completely crack, and for lack of a better term, ruin all the effort you put in to fasting that whole time. So don't do that. Don't go past the point of no return. Again, when you start doing this, it's going to be a learning curve and a process, and you're going to stumble, fall, and you're going to mess up, and you'll probably not make it certain days, and that's okay. The key is to stay hydrated. Coffee, water, tea, the 0-calorie drinks do help. And what I do when I get home, because sometimes I am starving as well, I tend to break my fast with athletic greens. Now, I'm not trying to plug them right now, even though if you guys want 20 free travel packs, hit me up, or if you're on the fence, I'll send you one right to your front door. Shameless plug. But I'm serious. Like, I'll go home and I'll be super hungry and I'm like starving, and I'm like, man, I want to we typically don't have a lot of things in the house that I can like grab and munch on, but there'll be like rice cakes there with peanut butter, or maybe there's like a Perfect Bar, Power Crunch bar or something, and I want to grab it, but I've completely kick that habit. When I get home, if I'm making steak, or if it's just eggs and something, or even if I got like a salad to go, whatever it may be, I'll get home, set all my stuff down. I'll grab my athletic greens, I'll take my shaker bottle, I'll fill it up about halfway, shake that bad boy, and I'll drink my athletic greens, and that's the first thing that I basically consume for the day as I'm making my first meal. And then I'll grab like a handful of blueberries, shove those in my mouth, and if I'm really hungry, on top of those two things, we have like carrots and hummus there. So I'll chew on that stuff as I'm making my first meal, if I really need to. Now, a lot of days I don't, but some days if I really know I'm gonna, eat a bunch of high calorie things, like instead of just like sucking down peanut butter, I do that. And 99 times out of 100, just by doing the greens alone, like I'm like, okay, dude, you're fine. Just chill, give it a couple seconds, make your food, and you'll be okay. And then if I eat like 3, 4, 5 ounces of blueberries, so be it. Like, that's a great way to go. So that's what I talk about. One of the negative things about fasting is if you find yourself you are starving, you might start to make really, really poor choices. So make sure you do stay hydrated. And obviously, like I said before, caffeine helps. But if we're talking on a deeper level, how it can affect your cells and hormones. Now, when you fast, several things in your body happen on a cellular and like molecular level. So for example, your body is going to adjust the hormone level to make stored body fat more accessible. Now, this is what you guys probably all wanted to hear. Your cells also start to initiate this important repair process and change the expressions of your genes even. Now, I'm reading, this is from Chris Gunners at Healthline put this out. And there's studies to back it. And some of the changes that occur in the body when you fast, your HGH, your human growth hormone, if you will, the levels of growth hormone will skyrocket, increasing as much as even 5-fold per some of the studies. Now, obviously this has a benefit for fat loss and muscle gain, just to make a few, depending if you're, surplus, deficit, depending what your goal is. So if fat loss is the goal, obviously this is great to hear. Next on the list, insulin, which you guys have heard me talk about before. Your insulin sensitivity improves and the levels of insulins drop pretty dramatically, and lower insulin levels make stored body fat more accessible. So think of it as like kind of unlocking, right? Like your fat is just kind of like locked up, and you want it to just be accessible for energy, right? So if you're eating in a deficit, the carbohydrates, the glycogen, the sugar in your system is burned off. What are we going to go to next? Yeah, it might grab a little bit of muscle, but it's going to attack that fat because that's the energy that our body's going to pull from. And so when we can have our insulin levels be in ranges that we want, we can make that stored body fat more accessible, which is amazing for all of us. That's why, one of the reasons I'm a fan of fasting. Next one, cellular repair. When you're fasted, your cells initiate this cellular repair process. This includes how do you describe this? Your cells digest and remove old and dysfunctional proteins that build up inside your cells. So the way I think of it is like these little workers are like inside your body. Like, I don't know if you ever watch like when like germs infect your body, they'll like kind of show it. I think it's like Mucinex does that for the commercial. Like all these little germs are like up in your nose. I think of the same way as like these little construction workers in your body that are coming in to remove, and kind of help build up the cells inside of you. The last one is obviously the gene expression. Now, these are changes in the function of genes related to longevity and protection against disease. Now, the changes in hormone levels, cell functions, and gene expressions are responsible for the health benefits of intermittent fasting. Pretty badass, right? And obviously, those are all great takeaways. On top of it, being a weight loss tool, a fat loss tool, if you will. And so, just to rehash, by making and eating fewer meals, intermittent fasting can lead to a reduction in calorie intake. That's why all these protocols work right off the bat. If it can get you to eat in a calorie deficit or be in an energy deficit, that is how fat loss happens. Someone comes to me and says, Jeremy, I've been working out 3 hours a day and eating only 1,000 calories a week and I'm still gaining weight. It's bullshit. I just don't believe it. I really don't. Like I'm not trying to call anybody out and say you're wrong, but it's really hard to believe like you could be a healthy adult with normal hormones and you're crushing it in the gym 3 hours a day and eating 1,000 calories a day and you're not losing weight and fat. Yeah, your metabolism can suck, but it can't suck that much. At some point, it's going to have to roll the right way. I just think a lot of times people are really confused about their food intake, and they overestimate how hard they work and they underestimate how much food they put in their body. That's usually what's happening. So IF can help that. It can help you guys with food tracking. Well, if you're only going to track, 2 or 3 meals, it's a lot easier than tracking 6 meals and like 7 different snacks, in my opinion. Obviously, IF changes the hormone levels, which do facilitate added weight loss. So, because of the change in hormones, short-term fasting may increase your metabolic rate, per some of the studies I'm looking at here. By helping you eat fewer and burn more calories, IF causes weight loss by changing both sides of the calorie equation. That, my friends, is ideal. There is a 2014 review study that found that eating a pattern like IF can cause 3 to 8% weight loss over 3 to 24 weeks, which is a significant amount compared to most weight loss studies. According to the same study, people also lost 4 to 7% of their waist circumference, indicating a significant loss of harmful belly fat that builds up around the organs and causes diseases. Another study also showed that intermittent fasting causes less muscle loss than the most standard method of continuous calorie restriction. That part is key for you guys who want to just, keep lean tissue on the body and also, reach your body fat loss goals at the same time. So obviously keep in mind the main reason for success in fasting, it just helps you eat fewer calories overall. That's the key. Obviously, if you binge, like we talked about mass amounts during your eating periods, you might not lose any weight and you might actually gain weight, which is terrible. So if we're going to quick touch on, these are some of your guys' questions and I'm going to run through them right after this. There's been studies done on fasting, both animals and obviously humans. They've shown to have a ton of benefits, with weight control and also the health of your body and your brain. And again, like I mentioned before, some of them say they can help you live longer. I'm going to kind of touch on that a little bit as we go. And I think if you look at, animals that eat the least amount and or at least the least frequent and the least amount, I think they tend to live the longest, I believe. If that's not, somebody can fact check me and shoot me a message, but I believe that's correct. So if we're talking the main benefits of fasting, real quick, just run through the list again. Obviously fat loss and weight loss and getting rid of belly fat without having to, consistently restrict your calories over and over and over and over again and still be able to kind of live a life. Obviously insulin resistance. The fasting reduces the insulin resistance, lowering your blood sugar by, let's say, 3 to 6%, and the fasting insulin levels by 20 to 31%, which should protect against type 2 diabetes. Another tip of the cap to fasting. Inflammation. Some studies have shown reduction in markers of inflammation, a key driver of many chronic diseases. Heart health. Intermittent fasting may reduce bad LDL cholesterol, blood triglycerides, inflammatory markers, blood sugar, and insulin resistance. All risk factors for heart disease, my friends, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the #1 killer of people in America, somewhere close to 400,000 people per year. Yet there's no public outcry for that ever on the news, and nobody seems to give a shit. That's my little subtle side rant there for you. Cancer. Animal studies suggest that IF fasting may prevent cancer. I had never read that before. There's a handful of PubMed articles here that have listed that. I'm happy to share with you guys. Brain health. Intermittent fasting increases the brain hormone BDNF and may aid the growth of new nerve cells and also protect against Alzheimer's disease. Pretty badass. Anti-aging. Man, Lord knows that we all need this. Intermittent fasting can extend lifespan in rats. Studies shown that fasted rats live 36 to 83% longer. Well, if it can work for the rats, I'll be a hood rat any day. Next one. That's it. Let me get to some of the real stuff. So obviously keep in mind, the research for a lot of these things, you guys, is in early stages, and many of the studies were in small, short term, or obviously conducted by animals. And so a lot of the questions are still yet to be answered. in higher, larger human studies here. So don't think fasting is gonna like do all these amazing things for you. If it does, awesome. The one thing I can say is it's probably going to make your life simpler, and it's going to be a lot less to manage over time. And so that's the key. Eating healthy can be simple, but it's really hard for people to maintain if it doesn't fit into their lifestyle. And so one of the biggest obstacles is all the work required to plan and cook and prep and take things with you. And obviously fasting can make things easier, as you don't need to plan and cook and clean up as much or as often. And for that reason, fasting is popular among people like me who like to kind of life hack and really make things simplified. It also teaches you to go without, and that's the one thing I love about it, and that's probably the thing I've learned about myself that I didn't really know. But it teaches you to go without things. It teaches you a certain level of patience. It teaches you a certain level of appreciation, which I believe is critical to any human in the world who wants to be a better person, but obviously be healthier. Fitness is a patience game. It's going to take you a long time to be fit and be healthy. And fasting just teaches you to go without eating food, without certain things that you want. It teaches you to delay gratification for a later time and, stick to something that you promised yourself, earlier in the day. And for a lot of people, they struggle with that. It teaches you to not just grab shit randomly, but actually stick to a schedule of success. I'm not a snacking person. I can't do it, man. It's just it's a slippery slope, and it doesn't help me. It just hurts me. And even if I think I'm starving and I do it, it's like, did I really need that? And then I just added in 600 extra calories of nonsense. And when you have these hard, fast eating windows, I think that's one of the biggest keys to success. So just committing yourself to say, hey, I'm going to eat 2 meals today between here and here. That's it. You have a plan. You're managing what you eat. So eating is one of the things where a lot of people don't manage it. They don't think about it. They put no time into it, and they expect to be super successful. It's fucking crazy. Like everything else in your life that you're good at or you do, you have a schedule and you show up and you have a plan and you prep and you do some form of management to fit you and your ecosystem and your process. Yet for some reason you think you can just wander into healthy eating and just figure it out. I'm sure some people can. That's not me. I have to have a plan, and fasting has been the plan for me. So getting to your questions, should women fast? I think they can, yes. Women are different than dudes in this regard for sure. Our hormones are different. Women are much more complex than we are as dudes. We're dudes. We're just stupid gorillas. Women are something different. You guys are, in my opinion, superior in almost every way, just for the fact that you can create life, you can carry life, your pain tolerance is higher than ours. You think more logically than we do most of the time. And so there is evidence that fasting might not be as beneficial for women as dudes, because there's a study you can look at where the improved insulin sensitivity in men, it didn't affect women the same way. And obviously, through human studies, there isn't as much stuff to be here. And when I say women, I'm just touching on, like, if you're a woman who is trying to conceive, or a woman who has a history of arrhythmia, or a woman who is pregnant and breastfeeding, fasting is probably not the way to go. For all the things that I've read and I've seen. Obviously, side note, I'm a dude in a warehouse talking right now. And thank God I have so many people who listen. I'm very gifted and blessed, and thankful for that. But you should always consult a doctor before you do anything. So before you listen to me, if you're really concerned about an eating protocol, consult your medical professional, and hopefully they're smart and educated, and not just a general person who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Like a real doctor who values health and nutrition and kind of, practices what they preach. And obviously, if you have a medical condition, consult your doctor. It's the same thing. Like if you're gonna jump into the world of fasting and you're not sure if it's for you, if you're a person who like has diabetes or problems with blood sugar regulation, or you have low blood pressure, or you take a ton of medications, or you're underweight, or you have a history of eating disorders, I would consult your medical professional, just for the fact of, I know if you have an eating disorder and now you're limiting the windows, does that play into something you did as a kid, whether it was anorexia or bulimia or one of the other things? I don't know. But I do think fasting has an outstanding, safety profile. I think it's amazing for most people. And I don't think there's anything dangerous about not eating for a while if you're healthy, physically and mentally, and you're a typically well-nourished, human being. So I do think it's awesome. Now, when I look at fasting as a whole, it makes intuitive sense to me. It's naturally how I probably always wanted to eat, and probably always should have eaten, but just didn't, because I was fed this line of like, oh, you should eat breakfast, it's the most important meal of the day. I think that's bullshit. And that's just me being completely blunt. I don't think breakfast has any more importance than any other meal of the day. I just don't see it. I haven't ate breakfast in 11 years, and I feel the best. I'm the oldest I've ever been, obviously, but I feel the best I've ever felt. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I have the best routine ever. I'm the most productive. I have the most mental clarity. I'm not contributing all of that to intermittent fasting, but I don't eat breakfast, and somehow I'm here. Now, obviously, I'm not everybody, but there's a lot of people who fast. So no, I don't think breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But it makes natural sense to me, because the food we eat is broken down by enzymes in our gut, and that eventually ends up as molecules in our bloodstream. Now, the carbohydrates, particularly the sugars and the refined grains, think like your white flours and the rices here, are quickly broken down into sugar, which our cells then use for energy. If our cells don't use all of it, we store it in our fat cells as well. Fat being the key term there. But sugar can only enter our cells with insulin, the hormone made in the pancreas. Now, obviously, the insulin brings sugar into the fat cells and keeps it there. Well, between meals, as long as we don't snack, our insulin levels will go down, and our fat cells can then release that stored sugar to be used as energy. That is the key. We lose weight if we let our insulin levels go down. So the entire idea of intermittent fasting is to allow the insulin levels to go down far enough for a long enough period of time that we burn off our fat. Hopefully you followed me there. That's why I'm not a huge fan of snacking. And I would say if you can let the gap between meals be longer, 4, 5, 6 hours, something like that. Now, Jeremy, you eat in a smaller window. Yeah, so if I eat at 3 o'clock, I don't eat at 4, 5, 6, 7, then I'll eat at 8. So I'll eat 5 hours later, and then I'm not eating again for another, 19 hours or so, give or take. Or that day I might have only ate once, but certainly my insulin levels went down far enough to where we can start burning off the fat in my system, i.e. how I can, live this lean every single day and I never really turn it off. And I'm not saying it's super special what I do. There's a lot of people who are super lean all the time. And when I mean a lot of people, like a very, 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 very small number of like fitness people who take their shirts off and do this. There's very few humans that live lean every single day. Even most of the fitness people you see don't fucking do it because it's so hard. Because they haven't found a rhythm for themselves yet. And it takes a lot of self-control and discipline. But I'm not saying you guys have to be, you're not trying to get shredded doing this. But it's gonna make you leaner overall the more you do it and the more you practice and get into a routine, in my opinion. And so if we talk about changing the timing and why that helps, right? So instead of eating every 20 minutes, or instead of eating every 2 hours or 3 hours, why does simply changing the timing of our meals to allow for fasting make a difference in our body? Now, this is an article super deep and it's worth a read, but I'm going to run over it super fast here. There is an in-depth review of the science of intermittent fasting published by the New England Journal of Medicine, and it breaks this down. Fasting is evolutionarily embedded in our physiology and triggers several essential cellular functions. Flipping the switch from fed to fasting state does more than help us burn calories and lose weight. The researchers combed through dozens of animal and human studies to explain how simple fasting improves metabolism, lowers blood sugar, lessens inflammation, which improves a range of health issues from arthritic pain to asthma, and even helps clear out toxins and damaged cells, which lowers our risk of cancer and enhances our brain function. That's on top of trying to, look like Brad Pitt from Troy, or, be Beyonce on the cover of Shape. I'm trying to think of some woman who's super fit. But the point being is, there's a lot of good things that can come from it if you do it correctly and properly over time. So I'm going to go through all of the questions here, the most common ones I've got from all of you, and the most common ones I have here in the queue, and then we can jump in from there. Give me a quick second. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I drank about 300 gallons of water today, and I'll be right back.